In this resin tumbler cup tutorial, I'm going to show you how you can create a peekaboo style tumbler cup using a stencil technique. To start with, I'm getting my first layer ready for this peekaboo style cup, and I'm doing that by adding glitter all over the surface. Now I've already prepped my cup, so I've taped around the top rim so I won't get any product on that, and I've also sanded it back, spray painted it, and applied a glue all over. I like to use a really slow setting glue, so for this I actually used a gold leaf gilding glue. I applied that all over, and that helps my glitter really adhere to my cup. It also gives me a lot of time to work with it. I'm going with a holographic silver glitter for my base, but you don't necessarily need to go for a glitter base. You just want to go for whatever sort of color you want to peek through when we do our second layer. When my glue dried, I then started to add a clear top coat of resin. I'm doing this because it's going to seal all of that glitter to the base of my tumble cup, and it's not going to transfer into the next layer. For my resin, I went with an epoxy art resin. Epoxy art resins are normally 1:1 and they are quite thick, so this makes it perfect to grip to a surface, and it's going to help seal all of that glitter in. It does take about 24 hours for it to fully cure before I can do the next step, so I leave it rotating for about 4 to 5 hours just until it is no longer liquid form before I can turn my rotator off, and then after that I leave it for a full 24 hours before I do start to sand it down. And the reason why I'm sanding it down is, one, it helps prep for the next step where I'm going to start applying my stencils, so it will let the stencils grip really well. And it also means if you've got any glitter that is kind of poking out, if you've used a really chunky glitter and the resin isn't completely smooth because some of those chunks are sticking out, it will sand that back and give you a really smooth finish. Because of this style of cup, I'm doing 2 layers, but I want to be able to see some of the first layer coming through when I do my second layer. And the way that I'm going to do that is by using a stencil. So I am using my Cricut Maker 3, and I've decided to go with stars, but you could do love hearts, you could do leaves, flowers, honestly, whatever design you want to do. But I did a holographic silver background, and I want that to be my star color. So I'm using my Cricut Maker 3, and I'm also going to be using the Smart Stencil. And this is so easy to use because the Smart Stencil means I don't have to use a mat. I can just load it straight into my Cricut Maker 3 with my chosen design. I've chosen to use the Smart Stencil vinyl over just regular vinyl because it is designed to be able to be peeled off once you have done the second layer, instead of just using the standard vinyl, which is going to really grip to my cup, and it will make it a lot harder for me to peel off once I have done that second layer. When all of the stars are cut, I then just peel off the backing to my Smart Stencil. This just makes it a lot easier when I do use the transfer tape to transfer the stars across. With the transfer tape, I'm just cutting it to fit 1 star, as I'm going to be transferring them across 1 star at a time. Another way that you can do this is to work out the dimensions of the cup and then do your design in the Cricut Maker before doing your stencil, so that way they all fit perfectly and you can just do one big transfer across to your cup. But because I wasn't really sure exactly where I wanted the stars to sit on my cup, I decided to do it like this, where I did 1 star at a time. Using the transfer tape to help me move my star stencils across makes this process so much easier, and it also means I'm not going to accidentally damage any of my stencil stars if I did try to peel them off my stencil sheet without using the transfer tape. So all I've done is peeled off the backing to my transfer tape, placed it over the top of my chosen star, and then I'm just using one of the Cricut tools to push that transfer tape down onto the star, so that way it will pull it up. And then just before I start to transfer all of my stencil across, I'm just going to be going over it with my roller just to make sure there's no dust left from the sanding. I did also give my cup a really good wash after I sanded it, but I just like to do that again just to make sure. Then I pull up my star and I place it down onto my tumble cup, so wherever I want to place it, and then I use my tool again to really push that stencil down into my cup before I pull up my transfer tape off that. And if you push it in really well, when you do peel back your transfer tape, you'll be left with the star in place. I also like to reuse my transfer tape, so I just place it back down onto my stencil sheet till I'm ready to use it, so that way I'm not having to go through a lot of transfer tape because I can use it multiple times to transfer these stars across. With my design, I went for 2 different sizes in my stars, and I also used 2 different styles of stars, and I'm just kind of placing them down wherever I think they'll look good. I wanted this to be quite random with the placing, no pattern to it. When I have all my stars in place, I can then start working on my second layer. So I'm going to be doing this by adding a layer of black. So you can either use black acrylic paint or black spray paint to coat the entire surface area of the tumbler cup. I'm also using a little bit of this chrome mica shimmer powder and just placing that all over really randomly, just to add a little bit of shine into that black finish that I have going on. I'm also then going to be placing glue on top of this, so that way I can start to add a little bit of black glitter. I don't want this to be a full black glitter surface. Obviously, if that's what you want, then you want to apply glue over the entire tumbler cup surface. But I kind of wanted this where the glitter looked like it was a little bit sprinkled across. It wasn't a full solid glitter base. So once again, I'm using my gilding glue, and I like to use this just because it gives me time to work with it. It's a really slow setting glue. So I'm applying that really randomly all over the surface of my cup, and then I'm going to start sprinkling the black glitter all over the top. I'm using a chameleon powder. This one is the purple, gold, and red, I'm pretty sure. And it's really beautiful because when the cup turns, you can see the chameleon powder change color in the different lights. This one is from Just Resin, but you can get chameleon powders in a few different places. I really like this chameleon powder because once you put it on a black background, it really pops. And I think this really adds to the star effect that I'm going with. It kind of reminds me a little bit of like the Northern Lights or like a Milky Way. So I'm placing that just once again really randomly. I don't want it to be completely covering the cup because I want a little bit of black glitter and a little bit of this chameleon powder kind of poking through all of the stars. Before I do the last layer of resin, I need to take my stencils off first. But if I take my stencils off before I've sealed down the black glitter, as I apply the resin, that black glitter is going to go in and mix with the resin and go into the areas that I don't want it to go over, like the silver stars. So before I do the resin, I need to make sure that black glitter cannot transfer as I apply the resin. So one way of doing this is by using an acrylic varnish. So I'm doing that and applying that all over the top of where I've got that black glitter. And then once that varnish has dried, I can then start peeling off my stenciled stars. And this way that black glitter cannot transfer over into the silver stars once the stencil is off. This varnish is also really great because it does dry quite fast if you do a thin coat. So I found within about 20 minutes it was completely dry and I was able to start taking my stencils off. And because I use the Smart Stencil, it means that they peel off so easily. They also don't leave any stickiness or any sort of residue, so you can't see the glue at all on the area that they were applied. And it means I can then just start applying my clear resin straight over the top without any other prep work. Then once all the stars are off, I can start applying the clear top coat of resin all over. If you did use a really thick chunky glitter, you might need to do 2 top coats of resin because sometimes the really thick glitter can still poke out of the first layer of resin. But I've used a really fine glitter, so that's not an issue with me. But you can also see that chameleon powder as the cup rotates around. I get a really beautiful reflect of that sort of purple, red, gold coming through. And also too, the clear resin is now bringing up that really sparkly silver holographic glitter that I've applied in the first layer that had been sanded back, but now that the resin's going over the top, it's making that all super glossy again. Now with your top coat, you do want to take time with applying it because it is the final finish, and you also want to use a blowtorch just to pop any bubbles that might be in that resin because it will be super noticeable in a top coat. So I did use a blowtorch on the first layer of resin when I did the silver stars, but it wasn't as important to be as precise because the silver stars with all the glitter in would cover a lot of bubbles if I did miss 1 or 2. But when it does come to doing your final top coat, take your time and really go over it with a fine-tooth comb, making sure you didn't miss any of the bubbles that might be in the resin. And that is how you create a peekaboo style tumbler cup. And as I said at the start, you can do whatever design that you like. I just thought stars would be really beautiful for the style that I'm going for. And if you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments below. And if you are new to my channel, please do subscribe as I post new videos every single week. And if you did enjoy this video and you found it helpful, please give it a big thumbs up. And thank you so much for watching.